What's happening with Henry Cavill and 40k? I don't even know at this point.
I'm not Henry Cavill, but I guess I'm here to defend him. He's in a lot of trouble currently with Amazon over their Warhammer 40k show that he's supposed to produce and star in. In fact, he's a huge fan of the franchise and is going to be at the helm of leading an entire Warhammer cinematic universe, with
Amazon probably really wants those females, Astartes, Custodes, and all of the other types that are not female in the 40k universe. It's gonna be great. And the Sisters of Silence that are only female, by the way, yeah, they're probably gonna not even exist in this universe if Amazon has its way. Disgusting.
Streaming shows and movies that are supposed to release in theaters. But now there's already trouble before it even started due to creative differences. And now the entire universe they planned is about to be cancelled before it even began. There are new reports on what the main reason for the conflict is, which we'll take a look at, to find out why exactly Henry is so upset with Amazon and why they are so upset with him. So let's...
Man, the reality is, we all know what's the reality. If someone did justice to the Warhammer 40k franchise in cinematic form, it would probably instantaneously become one of the biggest things in current pop culture. It's like, there's just absolutely no question. Look at Space Marine 2. A pretty well-adapted version of 40k, but not a lot of things to dislike about it. And people are absolutely hyped about it. Now imagine a series, a TV show, a movie that actually does justice and tries to not ruin the source material. 40k is one of the sleepers that could be amongst the big franchises that currently exist in the world. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Star Wars, the Harry Potters. And by the way, people forget about this, but again, Harry Potter is a ginormous franchise, okay? Some people literally call it the Star Wars of the younger generations, the millennials. Not sure if it's the millennials, but you get the point. It's massive. And Warhammer, considering how it is gonna appeal to most men. The absolute vast majority, okay? It's gonna flip liberals into Republicans because they finally get an injection of testosterone. And by the way, for anyone who likes 40k, listen, you probably don't know what Baki is. Okay, and let me explain what Baki is if you do not know. And for the ones who know, you're probably already imagining your muscles getting bigger because that's just the effect. Okay? Baki is what would happen if testosterone decided to inject testosterone and illicit substances to make it even more manly. Okay? And it's in a relatively tame universe with no space travel or anything. It's just pure manliness at the most basic level and about fighting. So, you know, it's also an anime. So, check it out if you haven't. You will not be disappointed.
Let's get into it. Starting off, it's not hard to see why Amazon picked Henry Cavill to be the producer of their Warhammer cinematic universe. The guy is an extremely talented actor and he's very popular among the public. The girls like him for pretty obvious reasons. And while I don't blame them, it's interesting to get an insight into what goes through the head of some girls once they see an attractive guy like him.
Cavill, I love you with your glowing skin and your perfect face and the beautiful curls in your hair. I just want to hug you because you are the love of my life. People are not nearly as thirsty as I thought they might be. I've read worse things in my comments. United tops of Smash Bros. Henry Cavill can, like, stick his tongue down my throat, I guess. Thanks. Thanks for the
Hey, he's likable. Who would have expected?
opportunity. That definitely got thirstier. Henry Cavill definitely exudes big dick energy. And to make it even better, I'm 99% sure he's actually big. I'm weak just thinking about it. Thank you. Why the 1%?
By the way, remember when Brie Larson did this and how that went? Yeah, not great. But she's still my wife and you can't badmouth her. I will not allow it.
I ask. And furthermore, no comment.
There were a lot more comments that were much more wild than those, but I think this should be sufficient. I think you get the point of why girls like...
Yeah, the thirsty women are just... Well, let's just say unhinged, extremely unhinged.
like him. But it's of course not just the girls, but the boys do like him as well, even if it's mainly for other reasons than his looks. Primarily because he's a big nerd and thus fan of various franchises, but also a massive gamer, and someone who doesn't have a problem admitting that.
How much of a gamer are you?
Very much of a gamer. I mean, it depends on who I'm talking to. If I'm talking to the average person, very much, massively a gamer. But if I'm talking to a pro gamer, no, he or she would think that I'm not as much of a gamer. Total War, Warhammer 2, that's the one which I'm on now, because that's always a good jump-in game. I can always jump in, play for a bit, play for a few hours, pass the time, jump out again. And then I can come back and nothing's changed.
And that's mainly the reason why Amazon picked him. Not only popular among men and women, but also...
Nah, the real reason Amazon picked him is just literally because his popularity is kind of skyrocketed at this point, especially. Now it's kind of a little bit subsided, but there was that moment when Henry Cavill was probably the #1 most talked about TV star.
Also someone who's a big gamer himself, and someone who just so happens to be a huge fan of the Warhammer games.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about gaming. How much time have you been carving out for your gaming life?
A fair amount.
Okay.
When I say a fair amount, that probably means a lot for those who don't know.
Just 4 hours a day.
Yeah, I mean, maybe more. I have been playing Warhammer Total War, Warhammer 3 Total War. And yes, some people of culture in the audience. I love that game. It's so good. It's so good.
So he's tall, handsome, buff to rich, popular, charismatic, and a nerd who loves Warhammer? Sounds like Amazon found themselves the perfect producer for their planned universe.
Also, is this his house? Doesn't seem like, you know, he's living the super posh life, honestly. Looks like he's kinda modest because, okay, listen, if this is his house and he is a multi-millionaire, yeah. None of this screams rich. Look at this. This is something you should probably fix at some point, said the guy who literally has a couple of dead bugs on his equivalent of that. But you know, that's you know, he not here or there. But this looks like a dent. But in any case, yeah, he looks like he's kind of living not that super luxurious posh life.
Henry Cavill, who looks nothing like a nerd and yet is someone who rather than going out prefers to sit at home playing games for at least 4 hours a day. But when it comes to Warhammer, to everyone doubting just what a huge fan he is, he's always been very open that he's not just playing the video games, but is also reading the books and even collects and paints the miniature figures.
I was looking on your Instagram, and you certainly, I know you shouldn't say somebody looks like a nerd or doesn't look like a nerd. You don't look like a nerd. You look like the opposite of a nerd.
Right.
You look like the quarterback or even, you know.
Man, they really need to have the soundtrack here. This doesn't seem appealing at all.
You know, the offensive lineman or something like that. You're a big, handsome, muscular guy, and yet you have hobbies, the hobbies of a nerd. Would you...
I do, yes.
You do. This is something that you, I'm told, are very involved with, and this is, you're painting... What is this thing you're painting?
That is it's a helmet.
Okay.
A very small helmet, obviously.
Tiny little helmet. And this is the full figure.
And that is a body attached
to the helmet. You painted this.
I did.
And then you play with it?
You paint many of them, and then you play with them with other people.
So yes, Henry actually sits at home and paints them, something he shared repeatedly on his Instagram. The figure that he just showcased, for all of those unfamiliar with the franchise, was an Adeptus Custodes figure with golden battle armor. And yes, the Custodes are his favorite faction in Warhammer. The reason as to why that's even important is because the Custodes are the main reason as to why there's now a conflict going on between Henry and Amazon, and why the Warhammer Cinematic Universe is already on the
yes, the woman Custodes.
Verge of cancellation. The drama behind the scenes and the possible cancellation is something insiders have been reporting on for months now. But after all this time, it was recently confirmed by Games Workshop, the company behind Warhammer. And the reason for the drama was first started when Games Workshop introduced new female Adeptus Custodes into Warhammer 40k, and a certain
No. They did worse. They did absolutely way worse than introduce them. They literally just said, oh yeah, they have always existed. Oh yeah, sure. Yeah, that's they just been dead all this time from the beginning.
Asserted that custodies could be any gender. And that caused one hell of a backlash among passionate Warhammer fans, who immediately started attacking Games Workshop. Cause in order to introduce female custodies, they retconned a decade-old lore which clearly
Yeah, that's not even attacking them, that's just, you know, pointing out that this is a lie.
Stated that the custodies have always been an all-male faction. Of course, fans care a lot about the franchise for a reason. They're usually big fans of the lore, the world, the story and the characters. So when Games Workshop suddenly added female custodies to the franchise, they caused a massive backlash with that. Fans called out how that didn't make any sense, how the codexes always described the custodies as male and how every single depiction of them always showcased a man in armor. And that's because only male children from royal families were chosen to serve the Emperor of Mankind. So a few months ago, when Games Workshop didn't just introduce female custodies, but stated that they've always existed, that meant a lore retcon to one of the most popular and important factions in the game. That caused massive outrage online, and a massive drop in their stock, due to a lot of passionate fans deciding to boycott the company. And they soon found out that their decision, which, let's be honest here, most likely was politically motivated, would turn out to have even worse consequences for the company. Cause one of those hardcore passionate Warhammer fans was Henry Cavill, who not only holds Warhammer as his favorite franchise and the one he's most passionate about, but who also hinted on various occasions, next to his posts about their figures, that the Custodies are his favorite faction.
Now we're on Netflix Geeked, so let's talk about what you guys personally geek out about. Henry, let's start with you.
Specifically, which universe, or just?
I mean, just anything.
Hey, she was a celebrity. I forgot from where. Well, not a real celebrity, but she was, you know, she was back then in the time when YouTube was young.
Oh my goodness, here we go.
How long have you got?
You've got so many and I've got none.
Yeah, I was like, how much time do we have?
Listen, I'll sit here all day listening.
Ruling out The Witcher.
Yeah, not The Witcher. Okay.
I mean, the easy answer is Warhammer 40,000. That is my jam. I have been into it since I was 10.
What's your army at the moment?
Custodies.
Yeah. I'm going Necrons next year.
Necrons? Okay. All right. Cool.
Were you into?
Yes.
Henry Cavill makes a surprising admission about Warhammer 40k. Cavill made this admission when asked about his favorite army to play in 10th edition Warhammer 40k.
I have a Warhammer question for you. And
I have not seen his actual answer, but I heard that he was not happy. Not happy. Now, he didn't blatantly, as much as I understand, go and say, what the fuck is this? What do you mean, you absolute animals? What have you done? But, you know, he needs to be obviously tame because it's Hollywood, baby.
there are lots of rumors about which 40k army is your favorite at the moment. Care to set the record straight about your favorite faction in 10th edition?
I haven't played 10th edition.
Okay.
But regardless, it's still Custodies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now, for those of you not in the know, Cavill has long been a fan of the Custodies, the superhuman bodyguards of the now functionally undead Emperor of Mankind. God, we love Warhammer 40k! 10th edition came out last year, and he's likely been busy acting and prepping for the live-action Warhammer 40k series, so he can't actually sit down at the table. Luckily, a new Custodies Codex is out this spring, so it's a good time for Cavill to get those miniatures out and roll some dice.
Well, it's true that Henry is very busy, but that last line about the codex didn't age well, cause it was in that codex that Games Workshop decided to piss off the fans by retconning the lore around the Custodies. And they are clearly Henry's favorite faction, so much so that the lore retcon caused not just massive drama online, but behind the scenes of the Amazon show as well. As it turned out, Amazon was actually...
Do you think his second favorite faction is Krieg? Probably. Everyone loves Krieg.
Actually the one who forced Games Workshop to introduce female custodies so that they could then use them in their show with Henry Cavill. And yet Henry didn't know about that, and once he found out, he was allegedly really mad. Cause they pushed for female custodies and female space marines, and all of that behind his back. For everyone unaware who doesn't understand why Amazon pushed for female custodies, let me quickly explain. So Amazon, like some other big entertainment firms, has a set of guidelines to ensure that every project has enough quote-unquote diversity. So what they basically do is judge people based on the color of their skin. They don't always hire the best person for the
God, I just love this, by the way. there's this neat little thing called the paradox of tolerance, and it's a very simple one. To be tolerant, you must be intolerant against intolerance, which creates a very interesting feedback loop, as we all know in the current day and age. And yeah, good luck with that.
The job, but the most important thing that person has to do is to fulfill the quota Amazon needs them to fulfill. They set every showrunner a bunch of requirements that his or her show has to fulfill in terms of diversity on screen and on set. Like that every project needs to feature at least 50% women and at least 50% of people from underrepresented racial /
Can't they just say that Necrons are the women?
ethnic / cultural groups. And Henry Cavill's show, being an Amazon property, needs to fulfill those requirements as well, whether Henry wants to or not. And yet Warhammer, being one of the most brutal franchises out there, is of course a very male-dominated franchise. And Amazon can't have that, cause they want at least 50% of the characters to be female. So they decided to introduce female custodians into the lore, specifically so their show could fulfill the diversity quota they set themselves.
Disgusting. And this proves just, a couple of things that we already know. 1, Amazon's clearly evil. 2, Games Workshop has absolutely no spine.
And yet, because they knew that Henry Cavill, being the huge fan he is, would be against that, they went behind his back and pressured Games Workshop to introduce them into the lore. That way, no one could argue that the show featuring female custodians would go against the lore, cause Amazon could just
Yeah, no one's gonna argue about that. Hey, suddenly, bam, 50% females. It was always there, what do you mean? Do you think some Primarchs are gonna get gender swapped at a point? Because, there are 2 options that can be female. Oh yeah. That would, by the way, be perfect for, because it's a blank, because there's 2 blank slates. And yeah, it would be pretty perfect to try and just say one magical name. Oh, they were the female ones. It is what it is.
Point to the lore and say that female custodians are and have always been part of the lore. It's of course a dirty move, cause they were right, Henry would oppose that.
But what about the trans custodians?
Cause he does care about the lore, which is why there's drama behind the scenes now. Being able to produce a Warhammer show was the greatest honor of his career for him. And as he stated repeatedly, his goal was to make the show as good as possible by making it as accurate as possible.
One other thing, I know it's early days, but Warhammer, I mean, there's nothing more close to your heart than this. I know this.
That is true.
There are a few other things.
Well, yes.
I mean,
yeah.
how...
Professionally speaking.
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have a heart outside of work.
He does. Yeah. But it must be so exciting to be able to actually, dive into this world and be one of the ones that is just steering the ship and figuring out what the world you want to create is on film and TV. What's this experience been like so far?
It is the greatest privilege of my professional career to have this opportunity. I can't say too much again. It's early days still, but to have this.
What if we make it so Henry Cavill plays literally every character in the series? Every custodians, every space marine, every guardsman, every orc, everything. How about that?
This opportunity to bring it to the screen and be at the tiller so it can be faithful is key to me. And this is the stuff I've been dealing with since I was a kid. It's this sort of is the stuff.
Such a simple concept. Just be faithful to the thing that you're making from the source material, okay? But no, it's Hollywood. This thing that has millions of fans that like it because of what it has done. How about we take this, peel its skin off slowly, put it on something else, and then pretend everything's fine and completely ignore the lore. Yeah. Why did they do that? It's so dumb.
Stuff I spend my free time daydreaming about as an adult as well.
Like The Witcher. Why did they even have to change The Witcher? Why did they have to even deviate from the source material for The Witcher? Because The Witcher has women in it already. They're there. They exist. They're a part of the series. A huge part, in fact. So, why do you even need to change anything? But no, Hollywood's like, ah, yes, we know better.
Well, and I get to bring it into life, and there is no greater reason than I joined the industry than doing something like this, and I'm very happy to be here.
Making it a faithful adaptation was key to him. That in mind, it does make sense why the show could now end up being scrapped. Amazon wants to force him to include female custodians, on top of probably a lot of other changes that they force onto him because of
the only thing that could be considered a success. By the way, Amazon has so many woke shows coming out. Lord of the Rings, the Warhammer, or what's its name? I forgot its name. But yeah, that has a strong independent woman, kick-ass female lead. Then there's the something Thor, Loki. A woman has her family killed and now she's gonna avenge everyone, and she gets a staggeringly diverse cast of characters supporting her, and she's gonna kill gods. Yeah, there's also that happening. There's so much just garbage where women are taking male positions and being represented as men constantly. The rumor about Ubisoft, the fact that initially Star Wars Outlaws also did not actually start with a female protagonist. It was a guy, and it was written as a guy, and then they decided, now you're a woman. It's so tiresome.
Their diversity quotas. Changes that would make this adaptation unfaithful. That's why Henry is now arguing with Amazon. It's all a huge mess that could end up in not just this one show, but the whole Warhammer cinematic universe being cancelled, if they don't manage to settle their creative differences in the next couple of months. But
man, that would be so sad if it gets cancelled. But I honestly think it's not sadder than they make it and they absolutely muck it up. Anyway, Nearion, 10 out of 10. Bye!